So there's that book also called The Candlestick Bible by Munehisha Homa. So that's the guy that invented candlesticks. It was because of him that we have candlesticks in the charts nowadays. And he was trading rice back in the days, and he was winning like, probably more than 100 trades in a row. And then he invented candlesticks. So it's a very good book though about candles.
Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend. Uh, well, it helped me immensely. I think, when I started trading, I read everything. I've got like these 50 or 60 books that, I just read anything that seemed credible um, on trading, and there were some candlestick books in there. I'm not familiar with like, there's a lot of terminology with it as well. Like I would say a bottoming tail is often referred to as a hammer in candlestick speak. Can you see my charts here? Is there a chart
Yeah.
up on the screen share? There is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure. Um, but what I can do here is maybe explain it this way. I mean, topping tails, they're the same as a bottoming tail, by the way. They're just inverted. There's no inherent difference. Um, and they really happen a lot. I mean, if I've got a SPY chart up here of the current S&P, and I mean, you get my. Oh, okay. Recording message was blocking my oops. So, I mean, if you look, well, you got more bottoming tails on this SPY chart because we're a little more bullish. But right there, there's a nice bottoming tail at the low. I know 2 months ago we were talking about the bottom and what might happen next at that point. And I thought it was interesting. I think the last meeting I was at 2 months ago was right here on April 15th. And I was thinking we'd come lower, retest this low, possibly the prior low at the time in the SPY. And then as long as we got the higher low and went higher, I'd be back to bullish. And we did come in these 3 bars and then get a nice bottom tail. I didn't necessarily at the time think that was the low though, until we went over the top here. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, this bottoming tail to me was pretty significant because we tried to fall back down, and on whatever day that is right here, we held nicely. Um, but the real magic in this particular chart is when you go out to a weekly chart. Um, everything. I'm sorry, even a monthly chart. Everything starts to make. Let me just erase this stuff. Everything starts to make a lot more sense. Like if this were the good place to get long, or maybe the last place to get long on April 30th, if we go to the monthly chart, you see what we've got there on the monthly chart? You've got a huge bottoming tail. Now, it's not a topping tail, but like I said, it's easier to explain it this way. This basically says that's the low. Who was it? Somebody called these, I think it was Alexander Elder called these bottoming tails. Um, he's an old guy author who might not be around anymore, but wrote a bunch of great books on trading too. Anyway, the tails, particularly after a series of similar bars, like here we only got two, but two or three bars in the same direction and then a big tail, particularly on increased volume, which notice we got down there. That usually spells the end of that move. Um, so so I try to look for them. They're hard to see when they're forming, but they do form on every time frame. And the things I always look out for is multiple bars and then the tail, either up or down, and then the volume. Those are the two keys to me. Keep in mind too that at one point, this bar, the bottom of this tail, this was an all red bar. Now, this one's a monthly chart, so you had a long time for it to move. But let's go to the weekly chart a second and see what that looks like. See, just a teeny tiny tail, but, and this was the tariff talk and all that, and the market's falling apart. But that's how it always happens. It's always something, and you get multiple bars down. You did have one little green one in there on March 21st, or March March 25th. But other than that, you've got all big red bars down. And at one point during this week, this was a red bar as well. This big green one here that really turned it all around and became the bottoming tail on the monthly chart. So I look for multiple day moves and then the tail on volume, and that usually spells the end of the trend. At least for now. So I mean, that's how I use them. But they happen in all time frames. I also use them in entries like this. Well, I didn't use it here today, but this is a chart of JBL today. Which was my nice trade, offset my losses. um, but let me go back to the daily chart a second. This was a overnight gap today that really ran well during the day. And notice what it left on the daily chart, a big topping tail. Now, is that the high forever? I doubt it. But it might be the high for a week or two, because that's a pretty big tail on huge volume. So I doubt we come back over this. I mean, it can happen, but I traded this today, got out near the top, and I'm done with it. But these kinds of bars that appear usually spell the end for a little while, particularly in that big, huge volume. So that's an example of like if GBO were to gap open tomorrow a little bit down from here, I'd consider a short. Because when you see a big green bar with a tail and then you get a little red bar next to it, it's usually the start of the down move. So that's another example. And then, yeah, Reddit today, same exact thing. This was a nice breakout gap today, but it tailed on big volume. Again, is that the high? Probably not, but it likely is for a few days. I often refer to this one as well, actually, that's not the setup for it. Let me save that. And then there's stuff like this.
I didn't know, Rob, you traded Reddit. I was in your room today very quickly, but I didn't see that.
I never got in Reddit. I
I
missed it.
didn't see it
I
mentioned.
got in JBL.
Yeah.
I wanted Reddit. If you were there pre-market, I was saying this is the best one, I thought.
Huh.
But if you look at the intraday, geez, it just zoomed. There was no entry for me. It just zoomed. I mean, I don't have a way to get. I don't have an entry to get in that. Unless you just take it blind, which I don't do. But yeah. Um, And I didn't even, with JBL, I didn't get the open, but I did buy this pullback here. You got the big first bar, and then we got a nice pullback. So I got in JBL here with a little stop under that green bar, and then wrote it out to here to 103, 203 or something. As soon as that red bar started to form, I was out. But the tail's on the daily here. And then I just wanted to point out just a couple others, and then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Like, I just saw this scanning an hour ago looking for something with a tail, and I saw this FNMA, which I actually have some of from a couple of years ago that I totally forgot about. It's in an IRA that I never really look at. And I only got it because some friend of mine kept screaming about how when it was $1.50, it's going to zoom, they're going to change something, and this is going to happen. And I don't even understand what he was saying, but I just bought some because he was so intent on it. And then it went down for a year after that. I think it was way back here. Anyway, I don't know where it was, but I think I'm in under $2. But it's not because I'm smart. It's just because I listened to a friend who thought he knew something. It usually doesn't work well, and it didn't on this. It was down for over a year, but then evidently it started moving, and I just stumbled on it today and said, "Wow, this thing's $10 now." But what I really zoomed in on was that bottoming tail at 728. Um, that's a nice way to put in a low. It had a nice base. This let's see if I can. I love these kind of base breakouts, and it happened on a gap. Uh, but this multiple day pullback right into that base and immediate bounce on big volume says to me that's probably the low for a while. This thing can easily see new highs. Now I wouldn't buy it, but I'm thinking my first thought when I saw it was $10 was, oh, I should get out of this. And then I looked at the chart more and said, no, that tail says stay in. Um, it tried to go lower and couldn't. And it's the tail that tells me that with the volume, with the multiple bars and the big red bars. So anyway, that's kind of what. Oh, and I had one more example.
And I'm just curious on this chart, what
Yeah, go
caused
ahead.
that big gap?
I have no idea. Um, I, I I don't know. And I usually don't pay much attention to calls. I'm a technical trader. I watch the technicals, and you know, I
Well,
I
usually gaps happen when there's so much volume jumping in the market, and when the market closes and when it opens, it would be at a different price because us retail traders, we can only trade when our brokers markets allow us to trade. But other people like big money, they can trade pretty much like even when market is closed,
Mhm.
right? So when they're putting in money when the market is closed for us, and then when it opens again and it's at a different price, then that's what causes the gap.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
yeah, there's usually a catalyst that will, and I do when I trade in the morning, I like to know there's catalyst of some sort. And usually a catalyst is a big news event or earnings. And, earnings is the most predictable one because there's real traders in there. And I, I
What's a
don't,
simple
I don't think you can trade the U.S. market after 8 and before 4 a.m. though. I mean, that's one of the reasons we get the gaps is,
excuse me, what's the symbol for this chart again?
FNMA. It's the old Fannie Mae, I think.
FNMA.
FNMA.
Okay.
I have a point I'd like to mention. I know I'm not a stock trader, but there was a time many years ago when I tried my hand at stocks, and I thought I had time before earnings to trade a particular stock, but its competitor had an earnings call, and that just tanked it. So, in a sector, you can have several companies that are compete against one another, and the first one to have an earnings call can move the stock up or down. So you have to be aware of that when you're trading before earnings. Just be aware of that.
The old sympathy play.
Yeah.
It's like FedEx announces and UPS does the same thing, even though they don't announce till tomorrow. That's very true what Carl's saying. Particularly if you're trading before earnings. But if you're trading after earnings, it's not quite as bad. Anyway, and then I think I just flagged a couple other charts real quick.
Let me ask a quick question. If Zoe, if you're there, were you wondering, like, based on our discussion yesterday, like, were you wondering, like, what to do if you own the stock and you see the topping tail, if you should then sell or hold, or like what it means? Or if you've sold it and are thinking of re-entering and you see the bottom tail, if you're wondering if that's the point to go back in. And that would be, I guess, on the daily. But I think Rob's saying look at the weekly and monthly too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the question, like kind of synthesizing that into a question would be, does the direction of the topping tail or bottoming tail indicate if there's an upward trend or a downward trend? Because I've seen bottoming tails where it continues to go down, but then also when it continues to go up. And I haven't been able to notice a pattern on my own.
Well, if it comes after a multiple bar move and on big increased volume, it usually signals the end of the move for now.
Okay.
I mean, forever, no. But sometimes it does. Like, if you go back to 2003 and look at McDonald's, there was a big weekly bottoming tail when Mad Cow came out. I only remember that because that's the week I started trading. And everybody was saying, McDonald's is in trouble. It's going to nowhere. It's blah, blah, blah. Turns out, that was the low. That's where all the volume came in. It's never traded lower since. And it's been 22 years now. So they do have and that was multiple weeks. And then it tailed on Mad-Cal. So yeah, it often can signal the end. It's like breakouts on volume usually signal the beginning of a move. Like that, that's why I don't necessarily think Reddit is done. See, I'm back on the Reddit chart now. We had a major fall on this, and this thing stabilized, right? It put in 2, 3 higher lows, one on April 21st, one on May 22nd and another one on June 12th. So this thing, after a long, hard fall, starts making higher lows. Can you mute whoever that is? There's somebody with an open mic. Thanks. Thank you. And it also crossed a major moving average that a lot of traders watch. That pink line there is a 200 period moving average. In fact, a lot of pros won't trade long if you're below that. So today we gap above it, we gap above the base. Now it's a 3-day move with a tail. So based on topping tails alone and the big volume, I don't think it's higher right now. But the thing is that that's a breakout on volume, and that probably is higher in the months to come. I think the low is in, and you're going to see more upside with that. But I could always be wrong. The other interesting one I wanted to look at that I kind of watch sometimes, it's this ROST. It's in the retail sector, which is not doing so great at the moment. And it had this huge bottoming tail after a big gap drop on, big time volume. Is that 16 million shares on a day, on an average 3 million share day. So would that hold is the question. So I flagged this chart looking because we're testing that right now, that prior bottoming tail. Now, the demand is really down here in this 122.3 area. But I think it's interesting that this is down here right now, and so far it's not holding. Yeah, 129.20 and 128.40 was the low today. And it looks like it tried to rally a couple of days ago just in front of that tail and failed. So here's a case where I'd say that topping tail is going to fail lower because all the other indicators say this thing is coming down more. But that's a way to use a topping tail. If I were in this short, which I could easily be, because that's not a bad daily short setup there, that huge bearish gap and then rally back into a 200 MA into minor resistance, which is these prior highs. I can demonstrate that. Maybe. Yeah,
I think Paul has a question. I see a hand.
But I'll get it in 1 second. But my point is, I'd be taking target right now into this topping tail. That would be the thing that tells me that this move is likely over. If I'm in up here, which would be the place to get into this, if you're going to short. To me, it's a setup. It's a big bearish gap. It's a rally into resistance and a chance to get in. Or I didn't do that, but it's the kind of thing I would do. All right.
Thank you. This is super helpful.
Is it? All right. Great. Any more questions? Just let me know. And I don't have. Can you read me the question? Because I don't actually see because I'm projecting, I'm not seeing the text for some reason. Oh, wait, chat.
No, I didn't have a question. I just have a comment.
Okay, go ahead. You can comment.
Yeah, somebody was asking about the previous chart on Fannie Mae, why the big gap, and you said you normally don't look at the gap, but on TradingView, I can always check what the news is. And on that day, Trump said they're thinking of taking Fannie Mae public. So the following day, there's that big gap because of that news.
Okay.
And then even this, the ROS, the ROST,
Yeah.
on that day, there was news that, they withdrew their guidance for their earnings because of the tariff concerns. So when that news came out, the following day is a big gap.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. There usually is a catalyst, and I'm kind of weird about that because when I'm day trading, I don't really care like what the catalyst is. I just want to know that there is one. Like I don't want to the gap I'm going to trade, even if it's a good one. I don't necessarily want to do it if it's, because some analyst said something somewhere to his little group and a couple of rich guys bought a bunch of shares. That's I don't even want a Kramer gap. I don't know if he still causes them, but he sure used to 20 years ago. But they tend to fizzle quickly. But if it's earnings or a major lawsuit or particularly a settlement, those, or airplane crashes, those kind of things can really be a catalyst for stocks. So I just like to know that there is one. But again, I wasn't looking at the FMNA, but it's nice to know because I am long it. So wonder where it could go if it goes public. Huh, interesting. Appreciate that. That's a good note.